Hello, I'm Jelelle Awen, and this is day 17 of 33 in my series called Deepen. And Kalayna, hi, is back with me again to talk about these guys. Well, these guys mostly.
Yes, dragons, not plushies. To clarify.
And maybe unicorns, we'll see.
And maybe unicorns too, because I really feel my inner child right now. We were just talking about our inner children and how they're actually really important to connect to when you want to connect with either dragons, unicorns, or any elemental or anything kind of, quote, mythical, legendary kind of creature. So I really feel her. And she's kind of more starseed now than inner child. But yeah, I welcome her to the space. And so she's excited.
I feel mine too, Aurora.
You do?
Yeah. She came out in a session I just did, so she's right. She's right here.
Yeah. Mine's name is Kaya, and yeah, they. I feel very heart connected to my dragon ever since I met him. Well, it's actually a pair I met. They're in a sacred union. My dragons. Their names are Rocco and Rikini, and I discovered them quite accidentally. I guess I'll get into that in a bit, but I think to start, just do a little intro to who these guys are to us and what they mean to us in our processes. So in terms of the SoulFullHeart process and going into the way that we see ascension and how we go into it with our parts and our metasoul aspects, these guys become really important to introduce at some point because they help to kind of lighten it a bit. If you can engage the inner child in a way that's not just being with their woundedness, but letting them help you go into your imagination, not to transcend the deeper, more shadowy wounding, but to take them with you in this way of letting them help you find another side to it is what comes in the moment. Something about when you engage with the inner child, it should be, their job I think is actually to help relieve something. Not to help you transcend something, but to help you relieve something, to help parts of you that are very big and serious and very adult about a lot of things to lighten up, which quite frankly we all need to do in this ascension process, and we get quite serious about it, and we need to be serious about it. It's very sobering, but we really need them to help us, and so these mythical creatures, whatever you want to call them, come in very importantly to help us with that process too.
I actually feel them as multidimensional energies, and they take various forms. And I think it depends on what we need to see and feel. I've certainly met many, as we talked about the inner protector, I've met inner protectors that take the form of dragons, so have you. I've met gatekeepers that take that form. So I think there's so much in our collective consciousness around these energies. So they are really, though, to me, also a vehicle for multidimensional travel. So especially, it seems, unicorns actually help us travel to higher dimensional energies, and I could see dragons doing the same thing. So we have this seriousness about Merkabas and sacred geometry, and it all gets very technical.
Doing everything right.
Yeah, but if you feel the joy of an inner child that climbs on the back of a unicorn, like that just immediately raises the frequency to somewhere totally new.
Or if you, I remember when I first met my dragons, especially the male dragon Rocco, it was like this big old Papa energy dragon, like basically a representation of the Divine Father for my inner child, who basically, as soon as he's around, my inner child feels so safe. Right. Because nothing's going to mess with a big old dragon. So, he's not menacing. His energy's not menacing. He's just big. And so, he's got this elder kind of wisdom. So he's wise, and he's strong. And so he basically helps the young parts, any young parts you're working with, or younger metasouls, feel safe. in a process that can be quite, you go into some treacherous ground. So.
I think that I've actually experienced that I've more connected my crystal child, which I talked about in yesterday's video, which is what I feel happens. The 3D, more wounded child becomes more of a starseed energy, moving into 4th dimensional, and then a crystalline crystal child. And my crystal child essence is sort of represented by this unicorn frequency. And my Merkaba actually kind of feels like a unicorn. In fact, this unicorn's name, my crystalline child's name was Celeste, but the unicorn's name was Merkaba. And that actually worked so much better for me. Whenever I would try to picture a Merkaba, the sacred geometry of it, it was too technical for me. But getting on the back of a unicorn, like I said, or flying with the dragons, there you're lifted. And that's the whole point. And it's often the inner child that's the most anchored to 3D traumas because they just haven't been digested. So it's the inner child that, may most need these energies. Yet it's the inner child that has the most access to them as well.
And often that access has just been buried for many good reasons, or, the amount of abuse that many inner children and people have endured. It's hard to feel the self-permission to go into the imagination around any of this. And that's also because it's so helpful, actually. The parts have a block to it. Sometimes the inner protector has a block to it, I think, because it actually would help the inner child heal. So in this other way, keeping the inner child wounded, sometimes it's a strategy inside by parts of you that ultimately don't want life to get more to step outside of 3D, that are afraid that you as your essence will start realizing your real desires and what you really want in your life. And so and the inner child's very much part of that. They're very honest about what they want and don't want once you can actually start feeling them and start healing.
I wanted to share a little bit of a process that came up today in session with this lovely soul that I'm working with. And her inner child had associated her body. She's had a lot of health issues. Her body with almost like this dungeon, really, just this place she doesn't want to be. And when I started offering that, the body isn't the only vessel, right? I literally said, there's also dragons and there's also unicorns. And her inner child was just like, what? Immediately all this possibility opened out where she didn't have to go through the body or be in this kind of hurting, sad body that is going through transformation, that's moving more into light body, but just is going to take its time. But the inner child, I actually don't even feel it's imagination. It's teleportation. That this is the capacity we have as souls. It gets labeled by 3D conditioning as make-believe or fantasy, but actually our inner child is the channel to, the pipeline to our multidimensionality. And as they remember that again, and this particular inner child and I then went on a whole journey and met fairies, and it was just amazing. She was running down the hill, and so was I after her. And that there was this aliveness to that that meant more than any meditation, I don't know, any other practice we could have done. This is what connected her to higher vibrational frequencies. So this is not just imagination or play pretend or playing around with your inner child. This is actually a very key aspect of ascension. And this sense of raising your vibrational frequency is to connect with these energies again, to connect with magic again too, beyond the physical.
They have this natural understanding of the soul and how it works. That's just
inner
they
child?
have this they have this brilliance. Like, we're connecting with Aurora, your inner child, when you were going through that really deep process with Raphael and the separation phase, and Aurora came up and she had all of this wisdom and insight, and it just took us into this space of being able to see it, to see what was going on, and that soul bonds can't die, and it's just like this beautiful reminder of things that we should always be remembering, but we don't, because we get bogged down, or parts of us get bogged down with other business, other things that we're dealing with in our processes or just in life. So the inner child kind of stores all of this amazing cosmic information actually, and as they heal, they get more access to that, so they get, it's easier.
I just want to make sure to make this point too. It came up in session today. The main wounding, I think, of the inner child is that they didn't receive initiation. Instead, they received invalidation. So I think that came to me today. So the initiation is going back into these magical realms again, allowing your metasoul aspects and guides like dragons and unicorns to
however they show up.
Yeah, and the Divine Mother and Divine Father to initiate your inner child and inner teenager too, which I'm doing a video of soon, rather than the invalidation that all of us received around our gifts. So if you imagine a timeline or life or tribal community where you're really watered, your gifts are seen and watered, that doesn't happen for most of us. So instead we're told to stop it, stop playing around, stop pretending.
Get real.
Which I actually never did. That's the main thing. I
totally did either.
That was the main thing about me, is I never stopped playing pretend and make believe, and that was again teleportation. That was me keeping my soul gifts alive, so that I could do somehow work like this now that people are actually paying me to do. Isn't that cool?
I know. There's a few times that you've said people are basically paying me to go into their imaginative worlds with them, to go into these multidimensional spaces that I go to every day anyway.
Which I did as a bossy little kid and told everybody what to play, and this is what we're going to play now. And
she's still kind of bossy sometimes, but that's okay. And it's really good.
Do you think Aurora's better? I think she's not quite as bossy.
No, she's got a lot more collaborative over the years.
But it's this essence, right? This essence that is in the inner child.
It's a self-assuredness, actually. It's not really a bossiness. It's more, because there's tons of room to jump in and say, well, let's do this. And there's collaboration. It's not like it's a conflict or anything. It's just this energy of self-assured. She's very self-assured and self-aware. And that's where they get to shift into. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, as more and more validation happens for the inner child, they get kind of precocious, and their wisdom can come out, and they're like, no, this is how it is. They can see through things, through the games, through the illusions, through the things that our protectors do, the manipulations and all of that. It's really quite amazing. One piece I really feel like we're here to bring is validation of the inner child energy. And again, how critical and key it is to ascension.
And that it's not always wounded, as you've said so many times to different facilitators you've had. Let's feel your inner child. You've done all of this inner child work. All of this, like working with the wounding. Like, let's start is your inner child still wounded? Let's ask her or him. How does your inner child actually feel about this wounded inner child thing? And I think most of the time they're like, oh, God, I'm so done with it. I want to move on, and I want to play, and I'm bored of this. Yeah. And it's kind of a torture for them, because they have to keep going back in.
They have to have both. They will show you their pain and their sadness, but they move through it very quickly. That's the other thing, is the porosity of our inner children. They want to move back into magic and play, and they need to, for all the reasons we've said. Well, we're going to today, Kalayna is going to lead us on a magical journey. I have to admit, I'm not that connected to my dragons, so I'm looking forward to perhaps meeting them today. Aurora and I are looking forward to that. So Kalayna will lead us into meeting our dragons, and you may see your unicorn too, depending on.
Jelelle has a couple of meditations. One that's particularly popular, I think, on our YouTube channel.
Meet Your Unicorn.
Just called Meet Your Unicorn, I think.
Yeah.
And it's a really beautiful meditation where you meet them, you go flying with them, and it's quite freeing. You get quite a bit of air, so you can check that out too.
Yeah.
So let's just go into our intention to meet with our dragons today. You may have more than one. So we'll just fill the room up around you with white light. Let's make the white light extra magical today. I see it sparkling and shimmering. It's creating a mist. Out of the mist steps Kuan, face of the Divine Mother. And if it's not her that comes to you, that's okay. Whatever guide in feminine form feels right for you. She invites you to walk with her. The mists continue to part as you see the trail leading up to your castle. I feel like a masculine guide wants to come in as well. And I'm feeling Archangel Michael specifically. Probably because of his sort of divine masculine protector frequencies. He matches the dragons a bit more. So with Michael on your right side and Kuan on your left, let's walk up to your castle. You may see your protector right away. Just greet them and check in with them for a moment. Let them know they get to come with you. And out from your castle, bursting through the doors, you see your inner child as you've known him or her up to now. With your protector and your inner child next to you, we can begin to walk around the right side of your castle. And you'll see a mountain close by. The mountain invites you to start to climb it. And you see an easy looking path. And it winds up. And an easy ascent. As you walk up your mountain, you notice that there is a flatter part to it that appears on your left. Kuan leads you to the middle of this sort of pad, if you will, this clearing in your mountain. As you look up, what do you see? Do you see a dragon? Maybe a unicorn? Maybe a fairy? Or another multidimensional being that wants to show itself to you today? You may see more than one. As this being lands in front of you, just take it in, take in what it looks like. Size, colors. Let your inner child play here. Maybe it's a big old white dragon with jewel encrusted wings. Maybe it's a half unicorn, half dragon.
Cool.
I don't know. Could be. Could be Falcor from A Neverending Story. I just realized that too.
Mm-hmm.
I've had Falcor come to me a lot in meditation when I was very young. As you approach this being, what does it want to tell you? What is its name? Does it have a message for you or for your protector or your inner child? What would it like you to know about your current healing and ascension process? So if this is a dragon that you see, or a unicorn, you feel it invite you and your parts onto its back. Let's go for a ride. If you got fairies, maybe they take you by the hand and fly with you. As you ascend into the air, how does that feel? How does your inner child feel? Being here in this magical place. You might hear light language. Dragons tend to love their light language. Unicorns too. What do you see as you're flying? What dimension does this being want to take you to show you the bigger picture of your ascension process and your higher timeline as well? After you fly for a while, your dragon, your creature, offers to land in front of your castle, back on the ground. And lets you dismount. You may feel tears from the reunion and welcome those tears. What does your creature want to say to you in light language or in English before you part? Thank this being for showing up for you today. You can reunite with them anytime you want to. I feel them all saying, "We're in your field now." Returning to us, letting us come to you is up to you. It's up to your parts. We have always been here and we're not going anywhere. Kuan Yin nods in your direction. Then Michael glances your way, and they both welcome you to this initiation, reinitiation into this space, into your multidimensionality. Is there anything your inner child would like to say to you? Or that you would like to say to them? As you back away from this scene, the mists come back, the white light comes back, brings you back into the present, into the now. And you can open your eyes.
Yay, that was fun. I have to tell you, I met my dragon, and he was white and goldish.
I saw that. That's
really?
So funny. Yeah.
And he called
it wasn't my dragon.
He called himself Locos.
Cool.
Which is like our favorite YouTube channel, music. And he told me Locos was a reminder of sound healing, to continue to raise my frequency with sound healing. But his message as we were flying was to serve, for this was pretty personal for me, but to serve individually, but think collectively, feel the collective, which can be, challenging sometimes, especially when I'm doing a number of sessions. But I've also started writing my book, which definitely brings me, I think the video series is inspiring it, but definitely brings me into the collective energies. So I think he was basically saying he's here to help me write the book. So I can go up with him.
He has a bit of a Falcor energy, which is really fun. When I mentioned Falcor, I wondered if I was feeling, I'm sure I'm feeling a million of you.
It feels like Metatron too.
I was just going to say that too.
Like Metatron in dragon form.
Totally, yeah. I got that too. That's so funny.
Locos, the mind, beyond certainly the 3D mind. So using wisdoms, bringing in wisdoms, but also Aurora was on his back, so it was a reminder to integrate and include her joy and magic, so everything doesn't get too heavy or too and you're doing something like a book project. In my experience, we can really make that laborious. Parts of us can, versus the magic of just every word coming through
and it arising.
So I feel him as very helpful for the future, so yay. Thank you for that.
Awesome.
And I hope you had a wonderful experience too, and can come back to this one and deepen that connection, and maybe then you could meet another type of creature too. Feels like open to whatever's meant to come.
Yeah, whatever. It's just an open canvas. So
thank you for joining me, Kalayna.
Thank you.
And you too. And I will see you tomorrow.
Okay.
Bye.